Welcome, Marla. Thank you so much for joining me. Could you please share with the audience, everyone, a little bit about you and your background? I know that you have a journalism degree, you have a really rich history and very interesting past in the entertainment industry, and you were a single mother and survived breast cancer at one time. And you've been coaching now for 14 years. Can you please share a little bit about you, and we'll get into a really great conversation, hopefully.
Well, great. Thank you for appreciation. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Sure. I'm a success coach, business strategist, and a transformational artist for creative women entrepreneurs, and a podcast host of my own podcast called Follow Your Joy. And yes, as I spent 20 some odd years in the entertainment industry as a publicist. So I worked with celebrities and visual and performing artists, and this is prior to social media. We didn't have social media. We had traditional PR methods, magazines, newspaper, radio, and TV to get our clients out into the media. So I had a blast. I loved it. It was super, super dynamic, creative career. It was great right outside of college with a PR, journalism degree. I love writing. That's part of my artistry. And around 2006 is when I started to get the discontent. I wasn't passionate about it anymore. It was 20 years. I'm like, okay, great run. Time for something new and an up level. And I wanted something more meaningful. And at the same time, that's when the disruption was happening in the world with social media, and everything was going online. And I realized I needed to reinvent myself. So it came at the perfect time. I intuitively knew it was time to move on, and the world was also changing. So I needed to change. And that's what I did. Is I spent about a year in discovery mode, trying to figure out how I was going to take all of who I was, the spirituality, universal law, communications, personal branding, writing, marketing, all those things I was doing. How do I translate that into the new, paradigm that was happening? And it took about a year, and I've ended up finding a spiritually based business coach that helped me initially, with the idea of becoming a coach and a speaker and a, workshop leader to teach people how to do, I guess, publicity. And I went, okay, so hold on a minute. So I can take all my expertise and teach entrepreneurs how to turn themselves into a brand online and monetize it. And that's exactly in 2008 is when I started. That's what was beginning to happen. So I was one of the early adopters. I was learning from my business coach how to create a coaching business online. I didn't know how to do this, but I had all the 20 years of knowledge in what I was going to teach, right? So that was the first iteration of my business, my mentoring company. And I became the personal branding expert, for entrepreneurs, and how to literally build your community on Facebook, how to monetize it, how to do email marketing, how to do blog writing, and all of that. 2008, right? To 2010 was the beginning. And then I just started to evolve with all the coaching that I was getting. I never go without a coach. And I evolved into then a business coach and, transformational coach. And as you know, those types of things, that's what happens in our business, is we need to keep evolving. And that's where I'm at. So 14 years now, and I have been completely blessed with, wonderful clients over the years that have been able to help transform their business, their personal growth, their spirituality, their intuition. It's a very holistic approach that I do to coaching.
Yes. Wow. And I love all that. I noticed on your website, you talk a lot about following your joy, like your podcast, and
Yeah.
enjoying what you do and making money, and that you can teach people how to love what they do and make money. And can you tell a little further on that and what people can do today to find what they love and monetize it.
Yeah, sure. Well, all right. So the podcast, and this is probably a good, entry into the discussion around the genius zone. And that is Follow Your Joy, which is, the name of my podcast. That was created from several years of me being authentic to who I was and how I wanted to show up, right, in the world, as well as how to assist my women entrepreneurs. And I have some wonderful creative men as clients as well, but the majority are women. And that is following your joy, which is part of you listening to your intuition, is a life and a business strategy. It's not just a good feeling, right? So I use the term all the time on my podcast, success leaves clues. And what that means is when we follow what lights us up, when we really pay attention, and I'm talking in business, this is what our focus is for our women entrepreneurs, is that when we follow what lights us up, what most comes natural to us, right? What will eventually be your highest revenues. Also, your highest level of creativity. Okay. So when you follow your joy, you are literally following what's right and authentic and appropriate for you, not what's out there and what you're taking in from what's out there. So that's the intuitive component, is that by listening to your intuition first, then the logic, the reasoning, the functioning, as I call the masculine of life, is that when you clue into and use your feminine, I call it the feminine arts, I call it the feminine energy, feminine power, whatever you want to call it. And I use that and coach that for women, because your intuition is your doorway to your wisdom, right? Your joy and the right answers for your life and your business. And
Yeah.
we've been no fault of anybody's, this is just how it is. We've been taught to live a very masculine approach to life. Hustle and grind and push through and use your logic and use your head and use your functioning and use your reasoning and all of that. And that's fabulous, but not all the time. So there's a thing that I use with my coaching, and the base of it, including when I talk about on the podcast, is we have to have a balance of both, of masculine, feminine. We must have, again, the structure, the systems, the strategies, the making of the money, all of those things. And we must have what comes most natural to us as women. We must have the intuition, the creativity, the emotion, the connection, the collaboration, right? All of that is the feminine of life. And there's, by the way, there's no gender attached to this. It's a principle.
Right.
I'm just using masculine, feminine because people understand what that is. You can call the polarizing of it anything you want. I call it masculine, feminine, right? But you need to have both. And the core of this is exactly why women burn out. And they burn out so much because they don't realize, and I came up with this because it's what happened to me, and I'll tell the story in a minute, is that we don't realize that we have been programmed to be operating in this masculine mode all the time. And this
Doing,
goes
doing,
for
doing, right? The
doing,
doing.
grind, go, push through, like I said. And this goes for men too. Like I said, I have some wonderful men creatives. I'm always coaching men, but most of them are women. The point is, yes, is that for women specifically, not men, when women are in this masculine mode of how we've been taught how to operate, we literally hit burnout, we numb out, we are disconnected from our intuition, our heart, our creativity, all those feminine aspects I just mentioned. So when you then lead, right? When you lead with the feminine and allow the masculine to support then the action from the intuitive guidance, now you got a formula for life that's appropriate for you, as well as much less, if any, no more burnout.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, we're all programmed to do. And I was watching this commercial for a movie, and the woman was saying, you don't need a man because you are a man. And it was
Oh,
just really funny.
oh God.
It was that show, Steve Harvey,
Oh.
I forgot what it's called. But I was like, wow, that's like me. I have so much masculine energy, and I was
Yeah.
programmed to always take care of myself for so long that I
Yeah.
personally just am always doing productive constantly. Like there's no like relax, calm, relax, receive, open, be, and but I love that. I love that message that you have in your programs and around it's there's just I think people have fear around how am I going to make money doing that,
Yeah.
or
Or, operating that way. I mean, and the only way that I can, and I know you understand this also being a coach and a woman entrepreneur, is that I can't coach, teach anything I haven't gone through. And so this whole conversation and this whole topic came from my own humongous burnout. It was 2017, and I was 9 years in the coaching business, and I had phenomenal coaches. I definitely had my business, running and doing well, but I was so disconnected from my creativity, my heart, my intuition. I felt like this manufactured version of myself. And I finally went, stop. I need help. I need support. I need to recover my dreams. I need to learn how to make money with joy instead of this hustle, grind, pushing the boulder up the hill. And so that's where I ended up meeting, which led to us meeting. That's where I met Gina DeVee. And I hired Gina for a private intensive to help me literally, recover my dreams and so forth and get out of this burnout. And what came out of that intensive was she pulled out of me my dream, which was wanting to live and work here in the United States and in Italy, and to actually go to Italy. I had a 20-year dream that didn't happen because I had a mindset not to do it. And she said, all right, you're going to Florence, Italy for a month. And I went like my eyes lit up. I said, okay, great. And we literally mapped it out in the intensive. And I went home flying on cloud nine. And a month later, I left for Rome, Italy, and spent a month in Florence
so
and lived.
she gave you the permission to
Yep.
do what you wanted to do. And even though, because you had the fear around, perhaps it was money or whatever reason you didn't do it. And she's like, you hired her, and here she's like, you need to go and you need to do it. And you were so excited. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It was
how long were you in Italy?
sure. It was the first time I actually had somebody kind of like a cheerleader, if you will, or somebody that was
Supporting.
supporting me in my dreams. I mean, yes, of course, that's her job as a coach, but that's why I hired her, because I wanted somebody that I could be accountable to and that could actually care about what my future looked like. And so, yeah, full month,
Life
full month,
changing.
Linda. I was in cloud nine. It was like my eat, pray, love journey. I completely transformed while I was there, which was the intention. And I came back a completely different from the inside out. I came back completely different as far as being very selective with what I'm going to do in my business. I ended up rebranding my business. I did a photo shoot when I was in Florence for my brand. I came back and restructured everything in my business, only did what brought me joy, only what I wanted to do, regardless of what anyone else was doing. So I was doing business on my terms rather than what was expected of me, right? Or I thought was expected. And it became a sweet spot. So I only did the amount of work I wanted to do rather than all this stuff that was burning me out. And I have since, that transformation has since stayed with me. Hence, years later, now we have Follow Your Joy, which became the premise to my business.
That's wonderful. Oh, what a great message. What a great experience.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, it's kind of like when I left Michigan in
Mhm.
April and came down here to Florida, and just letting go and surrendering and creating space, and so much good stuff has occurred, and now I just got my
Yeah.
Florida real estate license, and you know what, it's going to be completely different here for a number of reasons, and one is my energy is so different, and the
Mhm.
price point is different. And guess what I decided today when I went to an open house with $1 million, 20-year-old girl and her $1 million listing. And I was in there and I was talking to her. We had this great time, and she really inspired me. And anyway, I decided that this time around, it's going to be exactly what you just said. Only the things I want to do. I'm not going to hustle. I'm not going to chase. I'm
Yeah.
going to be attracting and just living and, yeah, receiving. So I'm excited for that. And, but yeah, that's such a beautiful story. So tell us, let's see.
Should we talk about the genius zone?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely. I want to
All right.
hear all about that. And
Okay. Yeah. Because this actually has a lot to do with what we've been talking about, and it is the core of most of my coaching programs. Every client goes through the learning of and how to apply their zone of genius. And what that means is, and I use the book in the curriculum, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it's a phenomenal book that was given to me by my coach in 2016 that really lit me up, that
I have
led me to, okay, I need to be including this in my coaching programs. So,
upper limit. Yes, I have the audiobook.
yeah, right.
The
Upper
upper
limit,
limit.
hidden
Yes,
barrier. Yeah, exactly.
it's a
And
powerful
I
book.
didn't even know, which I'm sure you too as well. Everyone that reads this, like, I didn't even know there was a zone of genius. What is that? Because what we were taught, and this is kind of the hierarchy of what Gay teaches, which I think is a really excellent way to understand what the zone of genius is. And that is, we've been typically trained, and that's okay, to operate in our zone of excellence, or our excellence zone. Because what he has are four zones of competence, right? And the four zones of competence are, incompetence, competence, excellence, and then genius zone. Where we typically live is in the excellent zone. At least most of, the people I hang out with, the clients I, coach, the high-end clients. And so that's fine, but what's this genius zone? And therein lies what he teaches is that genius zone. And I said at the beginning of this conversation, it's what most comes natural to you. It's what you can do for long stretches of time without getting bored or tired. It's what makes you happy. It's what's joyful to you. It's going to be your highest revenues. There's about 7 qualifiers that meet that. And when you're in that, you're also in your happy place, because it's the joy place, right? What kicks us out of it is we sabotage as silly humans, and that's okay. We got to unlearn this, is that we'll sabotage our length of happiness that we live in.
Right. It's
Just
uncomfortable. Yeah,
it's well, unconsciously,
yeah.
we'll,
Or we're
as you
not
know,
used to
we'll
it.
sabotage, will cause a fight with our, significant other, will,
Yeah.
cause just, whatever it is. And Gay gives a whole lot of great examples in there. So the whole learning of living in the genius zone more often is learning how to recognize when you sabotage and why you sabotage it, so that you create a new normal of living in the happy place, in the zone of genius, in your work, in your business, which also then becomes, and this is what I'm teaching in Own Your Genius Zone. He doesn't teach this in the book. That's then becomes your leverage strategy. That which you focus on the most is in your genius zone, your highest level of creativity and all that. Right? That becomes then the leverage of what you focus on every day, and you delegate the rest. Because if you don't delegate the rest, like we were talking earlier, guess what? What do? You burn out.
Burn out again.
Yeah, we all know we're supposed to, as entrepreneurs, you're not supposed to do everything, right? Everybody knows that. So this gives you a solid, right? Owning your genius zone gives you a solid formula and direction and understanding of where you need to be every day, but you got to identify them first. That is the traits that you have, the talents you have in your zone of genius. And that's what I teach in my 7-week Own Your Genius Zone course. That's coming up in mid-January.
Yeah, that was my next question. And there were two. One is, are there any favorite books that have inspired you? And clearly The Big Leap has.
Yeah.
And then how can people find their genius zone?
Yeah. Well, and in the book, they definitely have that, but to be in a coaching group, an intimate coaching group with everyone else, sharing their challenges. Like, for example, my current group that's in the course. I mean, here's some examples directly from clients as they were starting the first couple sessions. Okay. One of them says, I'm not giving myself enough time to lean back and let the creative side of me, be present and flow. There's discontent where I'm currently living. I realize it's my own power to change, not my environment, but how I approach it. And the whole discontent, this is actually a gift in the challenge. And this is how I coach this in the course, is that when you recognize that you're in discontent, that's a good thing. And here's why, is that we are creative human beings, and we're meant to create something new often, or we can get bored. We can get discontented, right? We can get into that kind of hum-de-dum, right?
Impatient.
A way of life could be frustration, impatient. And when we're not creating something new, hence, when you're in the genius zone, you're usually inspired most of the time to do that. But you get discontented because you're living in the excellent zone, which becomes your comfort zone. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So discontent was very, prominent in the women that were sharing this. And
At least they're
also,
self-aware. They know that, so they're recognizing it, and then we create our own realities. So we
yeah.
get to change it. Like you created your own reality when you hired a coach and then
Yep.
went to Italy. You took
Yep.
action. You made a decision. You were unhappy. You were, burnt out, and you hired a coach to help you. And so it starts with a decision typically for me. It's like deciding, which Tony Robbins would always say, like incision is a cut, deciding, you're cutting, you're making a decision and cutting off.
Yeah.
And that's usually the beginning of change.
Yeah, very much so. And creativity which is one of the important traits in the genius zone. As I'm coaching this, I ask the question, and I ask, your listeners, what is your relationship with your creativity? And most people go, what? What do you mean my relationship with my creativity? Most of us have been, again, trained to think of it as just a thing. We're creative, we do it. It's kind of if you will, the masculine approach to it. But when I dive into this, and I want you to think about this, is, what does your creativity desire of you? What is your creativity asking of you? Here's an example from one of my clients in the course. She says, I found that I had to break down an internal wall to feel this question. I had a difficult time connecting to the question. I had to quiet my mind to hear my heart. I discovered that my creativity desires my time. I've been neglecting it. I cannot wait until everything is done to nurture it. I need structured creativity time in my week devoted to it. It's my sense of joy. Without it, I'm unfulfilled. Therein
Yeah.
lies, everybody, why
Yeah.
it's so crucial to be in the feminine, in the genius zone, right? As your leverage strategy, following your joy, and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times I remember listening to one podcast where they were talking about creativity and I was thinking,
Hmm.
and they were kind of, because a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm not a creative person," but they were saying like a recipe, cooking,
Yes.
making a shake,
Yep.
a smoothie, that's all creative.
Correct.
And like people just don't think they're
Yep.
creative, but
Hmm.
yet you make a great smoothie, you're creative,
That's
you
right.
know?
Correct.
So, what other things would you
Hmm.
what other examples can we give people of showing creativity?
Creativity. Hmm. Sure. Yeah. No, this is something that we talk about all the time. Creativity is not exclusive to the arts, right? Creativity is innovation. Creativity is, the metaverse, the XR, the VRs, the AI of the world that's coming up. Creativity is finding solutions to problems. It's like you said, it's cooking, it's gardening. It doesn't have to be the arts,
Right.
and it's not. Right. So again, remember, we go back to that core of who we are as a human being is that we're meant to create. And when we stop creating, because we either get into this rut and we forget about our creativity, that's when we get discontented because we're not creating.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, creativity is a lot of things.
It's kinda like in school, they're not really encouraging creativity so much as they are, learning
The,
how the brain,
yeah, the
exactly.
logic, the reason, the function, the
Exactly.
structures, the systems, all of that, fabulous. But you're right. And that actually brings up a really interesting topic. And that is, look what's happening in the schools today is that creativity and art, right, is being taken out of the grade schools and right. It's like, what? What is going on here?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's not till you get to obviously college when you can, choose to go into the digital arts and what have you. But it's a
Yeah,
sad thing that they're taking
yeah.
out art and creativity.
That helps me to ask my next question,
Yeah.
which is, what would you tell your younger self, like
Mm,
your 18-year-old self?
mm.
What would you tell your younger self? What advice?
Oh
And
my,
to the kids today that are 18 and 19.
yeah. Well, and I'm a mentor for my alma mater, San Diego State University. I've been a mentor to junior and seniors in the Aztec mentorship program, and I have usually one. It's usually a girl, a young girl, and I'm assisting them in learning their intuition. So, what I would tell myself at that age is learn as soon as you can how to clue into, how to trust your intuition, how to use that beautiful asset that you were born with and get out of your head.
I love it. I love it. Sometimes I just don't know if it's my intuition or my ego.
Well, that's an easy answer, but I'm going to ask you, why don't you give me an example of how do I tell the difference? So what is an ego thought for you and what is an intuitive thought for you?
Okay. So I'll be all authentic and vulnerable. So I had
Yeah.
a little part-time job,
Mhm.
and part of me, I didn't know if it was ego or intuition, was saying like, I belong, like this isn't what I should be doing, or part of me, like I didn't know, is this my intuition saying that I should be spending time on more, um focusing on something that's going to bring me bigger return, and or is it my ego saying, something about you're too good for this or something.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Very good. Yeah, that's a good example. Here's the difference. Your intuition is always for your highest good. Always for your highest good. If any feeling or thought comes across as judgment, fear, logic, right, like a low vibe thought, with the exception of sometimes our intuition will direct us to do something to get away from what we're doing, to lead you down the right path, and it can feel uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean that that's ego. That's actually intuition. But the basis of your ego thoughts is always fear,
Judgment, fear.
worry, judgment,
Okay.
disconnection.
I love that. That's so helpful. So
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
intuition is typically for the is always
Your
for the
highest good.
highest
Yeah.
good.
For your highest good. It's always, you can feel the difference. You have to feel the difference, which is joy, which is excitement, which is expansiveness, and it feels right. You can't go into your head with your intuition. You have to go to your heart. And so you ask your heart, literally, you ask your intuition, go to your heart space, go from your neck down, not your neck up.
Right?
And you ask your intuition, do I stay with this job that's not making me happy and not paying me well? Or do I take the leap of faith and go to XYZ? And ask your heart that and sit and listen. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's excellent advice. Thank
Good.
you. That's
You're
really good.
welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how can people find you? Did you have more to say on your program, the Zone of Genius?
Yes, thank
Let's,
you so
yeah,
much.
you're
Yeah,
welcome.
absolutely. So, yes, is the program begins January 18th. Enrollment ends January 11th because there is pre-assignments that need to be done in order to be ready for the first kickoff session.
Okay.
So you go to, and what I have is a free master class to watch, right, on this whole topic, the zone of genius. And so you go to marladiann.com/genius zone/free. And I'm sure you'll have this in the show notes.
Yes.
That'll take you then to where to access the masterclass, as well as then the registration page for the 7-week course. And so it's every Wednesday from 1 to 2:30 Pacific time, starting January 18th. I believe it ends like March 1st, if I'm correct. So to start the year off, everybody, start the
Yeah.
year off. This is an excellent, excellent clarification to not only your zone of genius, but how you leverage your business even better than what you're doing.
Awesome. Is this a group class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a group. It's a small group, and this is something that I think is important to know. I like small, anywhere from 8 to 10, because I really get into coaching. Whereas if it's a group of 50 or more, to me it doesn't feel very intimate, and I don't feel like I'm very connected. So I always make my group program small and intimate so that I can actually have everybody voice their feedback and get coached and so forth. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's Marla Diann with 2 N's, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give you that info. Marla Diann, DIANN.com/genius zone /free.
Excellent. And we will put the link in the show notes to your
Right.
website. And how else can people find you?
Oh my gosh, I'm on Instagram. It's my favorite place to be on social media. I'm definitely on Facebook, often. So it's Marla_Diann at Instagram. And then I think it's Marla Diann Dennis at Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. So
Excellent.
yeah, follow me, join me on social media. You bet.
Sounds wonderful. Thank
Oh,
you
and my
so much.
podcast. Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
yes.
Yes, my podcast.
Follow your joy.
Follow Your Joy. It's on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, Google, and YouTube.
And how often is that? Every
It's
week?
yeah, it's a weekly podcast episode. Comes out on Wednesdays.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here and sharing your journey and all your wisdom and your amazing coaching. We love it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.